Yeah. The other thing I want to throw at you, bud, around this fight, about a month ago, they announced all the officials for this fight. The judges, and the referee for this bout. All my years growing up in boxing, I've never seen that happen. I've never seen it announced this far in advance. What do you make of that? Why for this fight is that different than any other fight? Why don't we get those announcements for all these fights then?
Because they want this to be the Academy Awards. Bang. They want this to be the Oscars. You know, Turkey Al-Sheikh, I mean, obviously he's done a great job in boxing the last 2 years. He's given us fights that we didn't have. He's made boxing more relevant. He's helped the sport. He's helped the fans. Again, he unified the heavyweight title that wasn't unified for 25 years. You know, he's done a lot of good things. He didn't hide it. He said this is going to be a marquee. This is going to be a marquee event where he's putting his handprint on it, and where Dana White is putting his foot into the boxing pool for the first time, where he's partnering up with Turkey Al-Sheikh, and in the future they're going to have a partnership. I don't know exactly what it's going to look like. Maybe it's going to be a league, a boxing league, whatever it's going to be. But this is basically the coming out party of that. This is that night when the big new restaurant opens up and you got the searchlights in the sky. And that's what this is, to let you know something special's coming. We are here in boxing now, and we're gonna do it in a big, big way. And as I said, this is their Oscars night. This is their Academy night. And that's why they're doing everything they want it to be big, and they want it to be loud, and they want it to be different. And you know what? What's different? This show we're doing right now. I love the direction you took this show. We didn't have any fights. We didn't have any fights to break down like we normally do. But we had plenty of boxing news, plenty of things to get into that we normally don't have time to get into because we're breaking fights down. And I kind of love this. I kind of love it. And I hope the fans love it, that we're able to go into areas in boxing today that I'm sure a lot of people would like to have a light shined on, but they never do.
Yeah, absolutely. But I wanted to ask you, sticking on this topic, and I think it's an interesting conversation for the viewers out there to understand the selection of these refs and the judges, and how the manager, the trainer, the promoter does have a say in this process. And what I'm getting at here, and what I would be very concerned with, is if I'm a backer of Terence Crawford, I don't like this list that I saw that was announced. Tim Cheatham is one of the judges in this fight. Now, we've talked about Tim Cheatham a ton on this podcast, and not for good reasons, right?
Sutherland and Cheatham, they would be the first guys called into the office on Monday if a national czar came in and said, I'm going to start investigating this sport. I'm starting to look at the things that Teddy Atlas talked about and a lot of other people talked about. I'm going to start, and that a lot of fans talk about, that they're leaving the sport because of the bad judging and officiating. I'm going to start to look at it. And the two guys I would say to you, sir, whoever you are, I would say, sir, it might be a good place to start with a guy named Sutherland and a guy named, yes, sir, I'm not making this name up. What is the name, Teddy? Cheatham.
He gave some scorecards that should never happen. One of them that stands out to me was the first fight between Tim Tszyu, and Fundora. He had Tszyu winning 116-112. He's the only judge that had him winning that fight. Fundora won that fight. There's been a bunch of them, but the one that really stands out is he had it 115-113 for Bivol versus Canelo. Obviously, that was a fight that I thought Bivol won handily. If Bivol loses the last round, that fight's a draw on his scorecard. I just want to hear from you, and let the fans know what goes into that of allowing or protesting to the officials that are announced for this fight.
Listen, you can't say as a manager or the people involved in with that fighter, you can't say who you want, but you can say who you don't want, and try to control things the best you can if you can put a list of guys you can knock guys down. You can't pick them. I mean, that's picked by the organizations. The commission has some say about it, depending on if it's a world title fight or not a world title. Of course, this is for the titles, and the the organizations put their guys in there. And the problem with they don't do a rotating system enough. It's always the same guys. It's always the same guys and in the same locales. Vegas, where you're always getting the same guys. And the problem with that is familiarity breeds contempt. We've all heard that, right? And it can also breed, well, contempt's bad, but it could breed other problems like corruption and or slighting somebody or favoring somebody, because obviously the people that are involved with those fighters that they want to win, whether it's the promoter, mostly the promoter, right? They wind up having a familiarity and a relationship with the judges, and if you have the same judges doing their fights all the time, the same promoters, because there's only a certain amount of promoters in this sport that do really fights all the time, especially at this level. There's only like 5 of them, right? 5 or 6 of them. You guys know who they are. So we got the promoters that are the lifeblood of this sport, that do the smaller promotions around the country, out west and in New York and in different areas. There's no doubt about that. You have those guys, whether it's the Joe DeGuardias or the Lou DeBellas, that's mixed. He used to do some of the smaller fights in New York. He's also involved, in a partnership with some of the bigger fights, of course, too. He's got an ego, so I don't want Lou saying, "Oh, I do big fights." No, I know you do, Lou, but you also, I'm giving you credit. You used to do the smaller club fights in New York. And you have a few guys, more than a few, across the country that do those fights. And that is the lifeblood of the sport, because without those guys, you don't get a fighter to the big nights. But now we're talking about the big nights. So you got the promoters that are doing the big ones, that are on television and everything else. And if you got the same officials all the time, which we're talking about, you do. I mean, just look, every time there's a big fight, you got the same guys for the most part. And again, I think that you can help a lot by rotating and getting new blood in there. And also geographically looking and saying, don't keep putting every time you put a fight in Vegas, don't put the same guys from there. Bring in guys from different locales. Mix it up a little bit, because you have these promoters that have a relationship and a familiarity where the judges are more prone to go towards them. Why? Why, Teddy? Why? Because they go out to dinner with them? They give money under the table? They do go out to dinner. I'm not saying they give money under the table. I'm not saying that. But they know that those are the guys that butter their bread. Those are the guys that put food on their table for their families. Without those guys, there's no fights to promote. They know those are the guys promoting all the fights. So if those guys aren't getting the decisions that those guys want, guess what? You'll be one of the guys that ain't working. So we need a national commission. We need a lot of help. But we're not going down that path. But my son brought up a lot of interesting things here. If I'm with Canelo, I think I'm happy with Cheatham. But if I'm with Crawford, I'm looking at it and I'm saying, wait a minute. Hold on. This guy had he had Canelo over Bebo?
No,
he had Bebo over Canelo? That's what I meant to say. I'm sorry. He had it that close. How he had
115, 113.
Yeah.
Now listen, there's another judge on this card who will be officiating this fight, Crawford versus Canelo, Steve Weisfeld, who also scored at 115, 113. I've more singled out Tim Cheatham because of the
because
inconsistency.
because of his past record.
Yeah, I didn't think Loma lost to Haney. That was one of them. I just talked about the Zoo versus Fedora, number one. That one, unbelievable. Richardson Hitchens versus Lemos, way too wide. Just recently, we watched a great fight. Figueroa versus Joet Gonzalez. Way too wide for Figueroa. There's been too many examples of that. And when you started off saying, it's always the same guys, I'm okay with the same guys, bud, if they're the right guys and they are consistent.
Mix it up. I hear you, but you're right. Excuse me. You're putting out the right things here, bud. And it's a very interesting, important conversation that's shining a light on dark places that just don't get light shined on them.
Let the viewers know, though, if you're the trainer, if you're Bomac in this case for Terence Crawford, and you say absolutely not, I'm protesting that judge, I want him replaced. What does that look like?
Well, I mean, you're telling the manager, really, for the most part. I would tell the manager, I would say, hey, we can't have this guy. You gotta put it in with the commission. Say that, this is why we don't want this guy and we want someone else. You can't say who you want, but you can put in for rejecting somebody. And you hope that you get your way. I have no idea what Crawford's people are thinking with Cheatham. No idea. But again, just to make sure we're clear on this, if I'm with Crawford, I'm thinking, Jesus, this is a guy who had it real close with Canelo Beaver. And for me, I had Beaver winning 11 rounds. All right, even if you said 10, you'd be kind of generous. But to have it that close, I mean, come on. And then the other fights you talked about, I mean, he's got a track record where the problem with him isn't just that he's so off and the numbers are so off. They're all for always the A fighter. That's the thing that puts a light on in my mind, that puts a danger light on, is that he's always, Canelo's the A guy, always, right? We know that. We don't have to dispute that. So it's not like he's on the side of the B guy. He's always on the side of the guy that the promoter would want to win. That's what bothers me. But then again, that's why some people love me and some people do not.